Spurgeon is not here tonight, and the first thing, has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the March 20th meeting? Yes. Good, and are there any comments or additions, deletions? No, if not, if I could have a motion to accept the minutes from the March 20th meeting.
Motion to accept?
Thank you. Very good. And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? No, good, and the minutes are accepted. All right, on tonight's agenda, we have two new matters, and the first is Kufner on Strauss Lane, and is there anyone here to present that to us?
Yes.
Excellent. If you could go up to the microphone, please. And basically, what we do with the new application is we're looking for information, we're seeing if you need any additional information, and then we will set it up for a public hearing if that's the case. So if you could just give us a brief outline of what your application is, please.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. My name is Gerald Kufner. We live this is the family here, my wife, my son, my daughter-in-law, and my granddaughter.
Excellent.
And so we come in full force.
Good.
We would like to build an addition to a second dwelling on our property because the existing dwelling, which is 800 square foot, is going to be too small for a larger getting family. So there's one baby and there's another one coming pretty soon. So we would like to add some square footage to the existing second dwelling. Now this entails a variance in terms of the distance from one of our neighbors, Jack Reichert, whose property is to the south of us. And the second variance is an additional square footage, which is above and beyond what is permissible, the 900-something square foot that is permissible as a second dwelling.
If I could just interrupt for a second. So it's two separate buildings?
Yes, there's a main building in which my wife and myself live.
Right.
And in addition to that, there's an existing second dwelling, and you have pictures.
This is the garage, this is
Great.
and then this is the addition.
Thank you.
For the second building,
Great,
yes.
okay.
Yes,
Good, thank you.
for the second building.
And the photographs you've attached, that's the second building?
Correct.
Okay. So, just for the record, it's great that they're here. However, in the future, the permission, if granted, would apply. It can't be limited to just your relatives, so it would be an additional living space. I just would want the public to be aware of that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
And in making that application, there were several questions asked of us in terms of how would it impact the environment. Now, we live in a very secluded piece of land. There is no impact in terms of visual impact on any one of our neighbors. We are
How many acres are you on?
We are in 6.2 acres.
Thank you.
And so our next-door neighbors don't have a visual on our property, so they would not be impacted visually. In terms of the environmental impact, I don't think there is one. We will have to cut down one tree in order to expand the house. In terms of the architectural integrity, we submitted some preliminary plans, and I think they make the house more attractive rather than, more ugly. And so I really don't have much else to say.
All right, so it appears that there's two variances. One is for this building. It's a rear yard setback. What the code requires is 50, and what you're proposing is 36, varying 14 feet. The variance would be 14 feet. And the other variance, accessory dwelling square footage, increase permitted maximum area, 900 square feet. So you're increasing it by 589 for a total of 1489. So under the code, the maximum permitted is 900, but this building, which already exists, is 1489.
That's after the addition.
After the addition would be.
Right. Thank you, Kim. All right, so those are the two things that you're applying for. Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions?
Yes, I would like, I couldn't get the square feet to add up. And I just want to make sure you have the right number of square feet in there. If you could submit a calculation or something before the next,
I think if you look at the denial letter from Michelle Turk,
Yeah.
it lists it out there. I think it's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 864 feet currently.
do you count, let me get one thing clear in my own head. Do we count the area on the ground floor, or,
No, the ground floor underneath
Should be
is
half
a
of it.
three-car garage. It's a sort of a basement.
okay. So,
Kim, I agree with that being a
Yeah.
question in my mind, too, because
I'm
it's...
not sure if it's based on habitable space, in which case it would just be the top.
Well,
But I think that's how it would be for a dwelling, because it's a dwelling unit is 900 square feet. So if it's only the top floor, that's what you would be measuring.
in this case, the ground floor has a mudroom and, an enclosed area. I just don't want this to come back.
Okay, should we add that on to the total square
I
footage that
think
we
we
asked
should,
for?
just to
Larry?
be,
Okay,
because it's not going to change, and it's not going to change the outside envelope much, but you do have some square footages listed on the first floor plan. And
Right.
So if you could just make a little table of square footages.
Okay.
And I would, to be safe, count the entry mudroom, which is not part of the garage.
okay.
Thank you.
And Kim, I think that would be okay if he provided that to Chris?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, that would be great.
Good. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
And I have, does any of other board members have a question? I have a few questions.
Please, yes.
On this map, there's like this, there's two shade spots, like there's proposed, or there's a car patch proposed, and then there's, looks like it might be like a proposed for the carport. Is this additional?
No, there is on the west side of the building, there is an existing porch there.
Okay, so this is existing.
Yes.
So it's just this little square that's there.
That's correct.
And then, in your application, you had mentioned that the neighbors don't really have any building. There's, this is on parcel access, might just be sheds. I just didn't know if you know what these.
These are my three boats.
Oh, okay, there you go. That answers that question, thank you.
One of which is in the water now.
Oh, well, good, good day for it. Does the board members have any other questions they'd like to ask?
All right, our next meeting is May 15th. Yeah.
Say it again.
Our next meeting, Chris, I think is May 15th.
Yes, May 15th.
Okay. So we'll set up a public hearing for that date. And let's see, if we now have to determine if the application is complete with the one change you're going to make. Do I have a motion to accept the application deemed complete?
Subject to the exit.
Yes, subject to that submission.
Motion.
Motion by Catherine, thank you. Now I have a second?
Second.
Second. David, thank you. All right. All in favor? Any opposed? No. Okay, so we accept the application, and then, Kim, we have to make a determination on SECRA.
Yes.
I'm looking at what we have on here. It's an expansion of a minor accessory appurtenant residential structure. So it would be 6.175C12 and 617.5C16.
Yes,
Good.
the 16 is for the rear variance, and then for the expansion of the square foot would also be a type 2 action.
All right.
Is it a rear variance or a side variance?
It's listed on the application as a rear variance.
At the,
It looks like the driveway kind of,
Which I think is right. It's
yeah,
at the
oh,
back of the
I'm
property.
sorry.
kind of, yeah,
I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong
yeah.
side. but
Because the frontage would be around the
It's a
driveway.
rear,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yep, you're right.
Yep.
I do.
Go ahead.
sort of, sorry, annoying, but septic and well, can you locate those on?
Yes, can I show you?
Yep, please.
So the well is coming from this house. There's a well in this house,
So
and
you-
it goes underground.
So you'll have a single well serving both structures?
Yes.
And a single septic?
No, there's a septic tank here, that's why we couldn't build this way. And the leach field is right here, that's why we couldn't build on the east side. And here, there's a big rock ledge.
Okay.
And we can't really, that would be a huge undertaking.
Okay, and the main house has its own septic?
Yes, the
Okay.
septic system is down here.
Thank you.
All right, so it'll be part of the public record that you just mentioned to us about the existing septic being prohibitive for the expansion and the rock ledge. It's in your application, but the rock ledge also making it prohibitive to expand on that side.
Ask him to note it on his map.
Yes, that's a good, yeah, maybe on this particular,
Could you just update?
Sure.
And bring to Chris an updated
Okay.
map with
Yep.
just where the septics
I
are
will do that,
and the
yes.
rock ledge. You can just draw them on there.
Okay.
please, thank you. Okay, so we have accepted the application. If we can have a motion to schedule the public hearing for the 15th, and also a motion for the SECRA designation, which we set forth before. If I could have a motion to cover those two, please.
Motion to have a public hearing on May 15th. You can attend, right? And a motion to consider this a type 2 action under CEQA.
Thank you, Catherine. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, David. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. None opposed. Okay. And last on this new application are the referrals. Let me turn here. Well, Rhinebeck Planning Board?
Yes, the Rhinebeck Planning Board, no other report.
No, and no others. Okay, excellent, very good. All right, and Catherine and I talked before the meeting about getting these assigned, so I'll assign this one to myself. Okay, very good.
Would you like to schedule a site visit?
Yes. What we have is a site visit where the members come, and we learn a lot from the site visits. You want to wait for after the public hearing, or to schedule it now?
I guess we'll wait until after the public
Here you
hearing
go.
in case there's comments or things, and then we kind of know what to look for.
And we'll do it at the public hearing, because this way we don't have to try to get you on the phone. We'll just get a particular day, and we'll come.
You can come anytime.
Thank you. Okay. All right, thank you, I think. Unless, Kim, you think of anything else? I don't think so. Very good. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you on the 15th. And you just submit those things. All right, we'll call the second new matter, Hudson Valley, the Rhinebeck LLC, Rock Ledge. Please.
AKA Rock Ledge.
Thank you. I'm George Rodenhausen, appearing on behalf of the applicant.
You got his name.
And I'm here tonight with Scott Dutton, the lead architect in the project. I know we're just doing this for acceptance, but I wanted to give you some background on the project.
Please, yes.
It's an unusual application for area variance. The project involves the former Rock Ledge estate, of which there's 136 acres remaining, and there are still 4 contributing buildings. This is a National Historic District in the town of Rhinebeck, of which there are only 3. There are still 4 contributing buildings. There is the main house, the manor house, which is at this spot. You have maps that we put in. You may be confused, there's 2 maps put in. Should be 2 site plans there. And the only difference between the 2 site plans is the amount of extension on the stone barn. But I'll show you very quickly. The stone barn is down here, near the entrance of Ackerhook Road, and the manor house is back in the center of the property. There's also, there are 2 other buildings, the carriage house, which will be occupied by the co-op owners, and the chapel, or the gatehouse rather, Stone Cottage, which is at the front, the historic gatehouse. So there are 4 stone historic structures on the property.
Are any of them occupied at the present time?
No, none of them are occupied.
Thank
The purpose of this project is to adaptively reuse those buildings as we can, and to add an additional 28 condominium units on the property.
New construction.
I'm sorry?
That would be new construction?
That is all new construction.
Thank you.
So, as proposed, there would be a total of 8 units between the stone barn and the manor house. And there would be 28 units of new construction in 7 clusters. So we're not tonight going to focus on the clusters. They are under a different provision of the zoning law that allows essentially multiple dwelling buildings that have the appearance of a single building but have 4 units in them. And that's what each of these other clusters, we call them, are.
Do you or your architect know if you will need variances? Do you need to come before us for those?
No, we don't.
Thank you.
This project is about 3 years old with the planning board. Actually, so the planning board has worked with us over the years, and we've had public input over the years. We haven't needed a variance at all up to this point, up to about 2 months ago, when we modified the plan in response to the public comment and in response to some suggestions from the planning board. And that modification was, instead of having 4 units built into the stone barn and 4 units in the manor house, we are moving toward putting 6 units in the manor house and only 2 in the stone barn. So let me just back up and tell you how that came about. The zoning law does allow at section 125-62-62G3A, it allows up to 4 units to be built on a 5-acre lot if you are adaptively using an historic structure. So what we've done is create a 5-acre lot around the manor house and a 5-acre lot around the stone barn, which would give us the ability to have 4 units in each of those buildings with a special permit from the planning board. And so far, the reaction from the planning board has been very positive with that proposal. But the stone barn is fairly close to Ackerhook Road. And the extension of the stone barn would be visible from Ackerhook Road. And the public reaction has been, we'd rather not see an extension on that historic building. On the other hand, the manor house is large enough to accommodate more than 4 units. In fact, to make good economic use of it for historic adaptive reuse, we would like to put more than 4 units in. So the notion came up of simply transferring 2 of the 4 units from the stone cottage or from the stone barn over to the manor house. So we have 6 in the manor house and 2 in the stone barn, but only 4 are allowed under 125-62 G3A. And so we're here tonight for one variance, and that is to vary from the permitted 4 units in the manor house to 6 units in the manor house, basically a 50% increase over what's permitted. So the background, again, is that this is all about trying to adaptively reuse that building. Scott is here tonight to show you how we can use it, and also point out that there would be no change to the exterior of the manor house, no significant change that would affect its historic resource quality. We would still need some addition to the stone cottage, but a very, very minor addition compared to what putting 4 units in there would require. So,
Well, do you know what would be required for the addition to the stone cottage? How large an addition?
yes, yeah, we're going to present
All right,
that to you,
we can
just so
wait.
you have the
Good.
feeling for it.
Thank you.
We are openly saying that we would take 2 units away from the stone cottage and move them over.
Correct.
Whether that's part of the resolution or not, is going to be part of the site plan to not put more than 2 units in the stone barn. So running through the area variance criteria, the 5 criteria, I won't go through it in detail because it's all the same issue, which is that by moving those units over to the manor house, we minimize the adverse impact on historic structures, and we have no adverse impact because we're not increasing the number of units in total. It's still 8 units in those 2 structures, but we're reallocating them to minimize the adverse impact on the public when viewed from the street, and we're also making better use of the manor house. So it turns out to be a very simple variance request. We believe it is an area variance, and I did speak to John about that, and I think he agreed, but that's to be said. So maybe that's enough background to let Scott show you the detail of the change. And you're right, the change on there, if you look at the stone barn, you'll see one with a large extension on it and one with a small.
And so the small, the second map replaces the first
Right.
iteration of this.
We presented this to the planning board as an option A. We actually are preferring, and I think they prefer, the option plan, which is to move the 2 units over to the manor house and have it 6 and 2.
And then the variance would be for the small, but
The variance
The variance will be for the manor house,
just that. So
Yes.
just for the manor house,
the
to
stone
go.
barn doesn't require it.
Right. Okay, so Scott, do you want to give more detail on that?
If you could just hold up a second. Kathleen, the variance is just on the manor house. The variance that they're applying.
Is on the manor
Is on the manor house. Okay, thank you, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Scott Dutton. I reside at 584 River Road. Our firm is located in Kingston, New York. We specialize in adaptive reuse projects such as this, and I've worked with this particular applicant on numerous historic adaptive reuse projects throughout the region. We'll start with the manor house, which is just under 24,000 square feet in total. Knowing that this is a variance application, I'd like to be specific. The ground floor is 7,325 square feet, second floor, 6,300 square feet, the third floor, 3,950 square feet. If you divide, in the basement, 6,300 square feet, if you divide 24,000 square feet by 4 units, each of the units would be just under 6,000 square feet per unit, which is not a practical place to be when you're looking to sell units in this marketplace.
Are those numbers outlined in your application?
They are certainly depicted on the floor plans
Okay.
that were submitted, and I can submit a recapitulation through George's office if it's helpful. What these drawings here indicate are the 6 proposed units. Each of them is color-coded so that you can see how they lay out. The units range in size from about 1,200 square feet to 2,600 square feet. And the reason for that variation is that the units are responding to the historic architecture and trying to be sensitive to that existing fabric. Are there any questions on the Manor House?
No, I don't think I saw that illustration in the packet, so it'd be great if we,
You have the floor plans, they're in black and white.
They have not been submitted to us.
They should have been. We provided copies to Mark Rominski when he was submitting the map.
All that came in my
Existing
packet
and
was,
proposed drawings of all of the structures
we
being
have the 2
considered.
maps,
Yeah.
and we have this, I don't see any floor plans.
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
Please, yeah.
I'm sorry, how large did you say the current manor house is?
23,825 total gross square feet.
So I multiplied, I think you said the largest proposed apartment under the 6-unit plan was 2,600 square feet?
2,965. I have a breakdown here that I can submit as well.
Okay,
so
yeah.
If you take the largest 2,900 times 6, there's only about 17,000 square feet. So
We've decided to orphan the basement level, which is only partially below grade, just because the unit size.
common area? or-
Storage, mechanicals. It just doesn't make sense in this market to have units that are that big. They just quite simply won't sell. You won't find the comps for them. So,
I'm just trying to be realistic about the prospect of perhaps seeing something come back in the future to add units.
just,
Basically.
That would not happen due to the complexities associated with site plan review, unit count, water, sewer.
These are going to be a condominium regime,
Yes.
so
For
there's
sale.
separate ownership
With common amenities.
with common amenities.
Right.
So there's like a firewall between the units, or,
Well, the Rock Ledge, the development itself is proposed as a condominium.
right. But within this manor house,
The individual, the owners would own half of the thickness of the wall. that
Exactly, okay.
That they share with another individual.
Thank
And then
you.
there are common spaces that are paid for with a monthly or annual.
right, with the entranceway and...
Correct.
And the parking, if you could just talk about that.
There's parking for the manor house here. There's also parking for the overall development down here, and it's contemplated that individual owners might want to have a space for a second vehicle. They might arrive, come up for the weekend or for a week, and want to stash their vehicle out in view
Has this
from the main
been discussed with the planning board, I presume?
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as visibility from the street and all
Right.
of that.
I'm sorry, the former dormitory will also be housing or no?
No. No, that's
What was that question?
proposed as storage and support space
Oh, okay.
The dormitory.
for the overall project development.
And the
Right.
townhouses will be up, will they be
Correct.
out of sight of the road?
Correct.
Yeah. And they'll have their own parking up there.
Correct. And about 2 weeks ago, we did a site visit with 2 members of the planning board so that they could understand the existing structures and have the opportunity to walk in them. There's a significant amount of terrain elevation change in here, too. You know, from Ackert Hook Road the property rises considerably and then starts to fall away towards the west. So these are not visible.
So we're considering adding 2 units to the manor house, so I'm going back to parking. Would there be visible parking from the main road that is related?
Absolutely not. Standing at the entrance here, you can see a portion of the manor house, but you cannot see the parking that's in front of the manor house. And that's existing impervious surface there.
Right.
It's been requested that we modify that slightly to introduce more landscaping and features that enhance the property, but the parking itself, the impervious surface is there.
Thank you.
The existing wastewater treatment and water tanks suffice for the entire project?
And Mark Rominski is handling all of the engineering on that, and George, you could probably speak more clearly to where he is in the process.
Right. On the water and sewer, it's being worked up with the Health Department, of course, but also with the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority. With their approval, when it's completed, the Water Authority will take over the system and own it and manage it. So at this point, we're going through the approval process with both Department of Health and the authority. The existing wells are not completely adequate. There is one that's a good producing well, but we may need to add additional wells, so there's going to be some drilling going on there for one additional well. The wastewater treatment plant is adequate for the site, and that will not be changed other than to be upgraded slightly, but it remains in place. So basically, those systems are existing now. And by the way, this used to be a daytop center with many more people in it than we're proposing now. Some are upwards of 50 people. And of course, when it was a mansion occupied by the family, it had as many people coming as guests and so on. So we're really reducing what was at one time the load on the house.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions on the manor house?
So you're just applying for the one area variance? Any other questions?
I just have has the subdivision been approved, or is that currently going on?
That's all pending.
That's all pending. So that's going on and with the site plan and the special use permit.
I didn't get into the seeker issue at all, but the planning board is lead agency, has declared lead agency. They actually did a type 1 declaration. And we've assumed, I think, discussed with John, that the zoning board will have to await the determination by the planning board under seeker that either it's a neg deck or a pos deck, but in any case, we'll not be able to act finally until we get that determination. So we have not submitted any seeker EAF here. That's already been done with the planning board. And that's pending. So the subdivision application, special use permit, and site plan are all pending with the planning board. Just in terms of timing, we are getting to the point where there are only a few issues left on seeker, mainly the water and wastewater, and getting those numbers finalized, and perhaps an addendum to a traffic study, but that's about it. And then I think we'll be ready for the planning board to take action, maybe in 2 months. So it might work out that if we get to a public hearing and they take action on seeker, maybe in another 2 months, this board could take final action.
Kim, it seems that we may then have a timing problem if we set up the public hearing for May 15th, and in fact, they don't have the water and wastewater resolved, and/or they don't have the subdivision approval.
So as George indicated, we can't act until seeker is completed by the planning board. And if we have the public hearing on May 15th, we have 62 days to issue a decision. If we cannot issue it in that 62 days because the planning board hasn't issued their seeker, we can always request a extension from the applicant. And would the applicant be willing to grant that if?
Absolutely, we'd allow an extension. We like this process to continue, and we'll work with the planning board to get that seeker issue resolved.
And we've done that in the past when, you know, either we needed more time to review the information or we've been waiting for other approvals. So we can just play it by ear, and if we need to ask for an extension, we can ask for an extension and then go from there.
Thank you. Chris, so then if you could let the minutes reflect that the applicant has this evening told us that if we needed an extension, that they would grant it if, in fact, the water, wastewater subdivision was not in hand. Okay, excellent, okay. All right, then, if I could have a motion to, well, first, if the any more questions on the application being complete?
I'm prepared to present the
Go ahead.
addition
Please
to
do.
the
Yep.
stone barn, if you'd like.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So the stone barn is a 6,400 square foot structure in total. It has a footprint of 4,800 square feet and an existing second floor of 1,600 square feet. It is located near the main entrance to the property at Ackerd Hook Road. Circa 1906, it was the caretaker's house for the estate. We are proposing a modest two-story addition to the rear of that structure with a 700 square foot footprint and a 492 square foot second floor for a total of 1,192 square feet. The addition complies with all other aspects of the zoning ordinance. It's also been designed to try and be sensitive to the historic architecture. Our firm, as the architect of record for the project, is working with a number of consultants, as you might imagine. We're working with arguably one of the top historic preservation consulting firms in the country, Heritage Consulting. They have actively participated in the design of these floor plan changes that are being proposed to the Manor House, as well as the stone barn. We're also working closely with Bob Fox and Gloria Fox of Fox Design. The addition has been designed to comply with the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, specifically Preservation Brief 14, that offers guidance to professionals such as myself for proposing additions to historic structures. So it exists to the rear of the building. It has a gable roof so that it is compatible with the existing gable roof that it nests into. It is slightly lower than the existing roof so that it doesn't compete in scale. It has a compatible shape and form, but it uses modern materials so that it doesn't create a false narrative or a false sense of
And
history.
what are those exterior materials, modern materials, going to be?
They're wood.
A clapboard, like a...
A clapboard siding, perhaps some shiplap. We haven't gotten into that level of detail and review just yet. And the New York State SHPO office, the National Park Service will obviously play a role in ultimately what gets approved there. But if you look at the renderings that we brought here, and that is the addition, right? Yeah.
And the existing exterior is what now?
Stone.
Stone.
Yes. You see the gable roof of the addition nesting in below the primary gable for the structure. And if you did not receive these renderings with the submission, I apologize. They must have gotten lost in transit. They went to Mark Rominski's office.
No, we did not, but if you could submit those,
Yeah,
please.
we have a number of photo simulation renderings that were prepared for this board to review.
So we'd like to see copies of everything that you've just taken us through. Really, what we got was the written packet and the two maps.
And I think you had a calculation as to the square footage of the units as well.
I do.
Yeah. You
I'll
could-
get everything to George's office.
Thank you.
Oh, how many sets of those renderings will you bring to us?
As many as you'd like. We've produced a stack of them. I'm not sure how they got lost in transit. So.
Okay, so one for each
Yeah,
of us.
we're going to give you 10.
One for each of us, I think.
Okay, we'll give you 5, 6,
Yeah, I would have
Six,
the
one.
one for the,
and 7.
One for file.
Okay,
7 is fine.
sure.
So do I understand correctly, though, that the only variances we're talking about here are the 4 to 6 in
For the
the
manor
manors? This is all additional
This will just
information.
show that the benefit of that is that you were reducing it to a very small addition. The other, this was the, well, we don't really have,
No, I do. The alternative solution that was developed, I also have color illustrations of
this, you want to hand it in? Sure.
that shows the stone barn here and
Yeah.
the addition.
This was, or this is what would be done if we put 4
4 and 4.
into, 4 and 4 solution. So the stone barn.
Thank you.
Have a fairly significant addition to it.
But the 4 units in the stone barn, meaning the addition, is not as bright, or is it?
It is.
It is as bright.
It is.
If
It's
they
just
had the
not
5
desirable.
acres. Yeah, if the 5-acre subdivision
Correct.
was approved.
Correct.
There's no variance at all needed for that.
That is correct.
Correct.
It was designed to fit within the zoning ordinance. And clearly, it's a less desirable solution for the neighbors, for the New York State SHPO office, the National Park Service, and the developer as well.
When it's subdivided, it will all still remain under one ownership, though.
All the land will be owned by the condo association ultimately.
Right. Okay, are there any further questions? Is there anything further you wanted to present? Thank you.
No, that's all.
All right, the first thing I'd like to do is set up the public hearing for May 15th. If I could have a motion to set up to schedule that public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Second?
Second.
Second, Catherine, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? No. A motion has passed. I should have done prior to that the motion to accept the application. Now, Kim, on the SECRA, where the planning board is the lead agency, so it's just not, we don't need a motion on that, then?
No.
I don't think so. Okay. All right, then if I can have a motion to accept the application as complete, please,
With the additional,
with the
With the
additional
rendering.
information that you're going to submit. Thank you.
yes, motion to accept this.
Thank you, and can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim, David. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. That so also passes. Okay, and then the referrals, let's see, Rhinebeck Planning Board, you're already before them, but we'll
right,
need a
but
referral.
we'll ask for a referral anyway. yeah.
And there are no other referrals. Okay. All right, well, thank you. We'll see you on the 15th.
And did the board want to sign this resolution?
Yes, Catherine, thank you, Kim. Okay, and the last item on the agenda is on the Baker matter, 10-10-10-14 Route 308. This matter has had a public hearing. Do we want to further discuss this at all? If there's no further discussion, I believe we need to take a vote on this resolution.
Do you want to go through the resolution?
I don't know if we have voted to pass it or not. And then if
Yes.
we vote to pass it now, then we'll read the resolution.
Well, it's usually best to read it first, so
Oh, I
that-
see, and vote on it as,
So that
okay, I
you
see what
can-
you're saying.
you can
Yeah, let's do that.
discuss it and
Okay.
ask for any
All right.
comments.
Tim,
Correct one is the one we... I have 3. Okay.
We can talk about it now. We can talk about it afterwards.
I was trying to control that, but... Okay, shall we start?
please.
All right. Resolution of the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter of the area variance application of Jeff Baker, ZBA case number 976. Applicant is Jeff Baker, referred to hereafter as the applicant, who was represented before the ZBA by architect Robert DuPont. Property involved. This appeal involves property located at 1010-1014 Route 308 in the town of Rhinebeck, bearing the tax parcel number, etc. The property is 24.5 acres in area and is located in the RC5 zoning district. Description of the proposed project. The property currently has a single residential cottage of approximately 600 square feet. The applicant wants to build a second structure that will be no higher than 2 stories or larger than 30 by 50 feet, 1,500 square feet, to be used as the primary residence, new residence. The existing cottage will be converted to an accessory structure, which is expected to become a rental unit. The new residence will be located 330 feet behind the existing cottage, which is already located 540 feet from Route 308, the fronting street. Pursuant to zoning law section 125-27A3, accessory structures such as the existing cottage are not permitted to project closer to the fronting street than the principal building. As the new residence will act as the principal dwelling, a single area variance of 330 feet is required for construction of the new primary residence to be permitted behind the existing cottage accessory structure. Timeliness of appeal. The applicant filed an appeal with this board on December 27th, 2018, and has paid the requisite fee. The appeal was filed within 60 days of the ZEO's decision dated December 18th, 2018, and thus the application is timely as required by 125-125B of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning code. This application was deemed complete and accepted by this board on January 9th, 2019. Secret. After accepting this appeal, we determined that this matter should be classified as a Type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, because the project involves granting of an area variance for a single-family, two-family, or three-family home. No further environmental review is required pursuant to SECRA. The application was referred to the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board on January 9th, 2019. We received their responses on February 11th, 2019, noting no significant planning or environmental issues. Site visit. ZBA members Richard Macaluso and Timothy Allenbrook visited the applicant's property on January 14th, 2019 with Robert DuPont. Property is wooded with fields and a lakefront. During the site visit, the ZBA members noted that neighboring structures were not easily visible from the site, even in the winter. Public hearing. A public hearing on this appeal was duly advertised and held at Town Hall on February 20th, 2019, and continued to March 20th, 2019. During the course of the public hearings, we heard comments from neighbor Bree Gallagher of 974 Route 308, who was concerned with visibility of the new structure from her home. She also alleged that there was an incident where trees were clear-cut during the night, and there was poor upkeep of nearby property leased to others by applicant. Neither Edward Russell of 1035 Route 308, neighbor Russell, Edward Russell of 1035 Route 308 was supportive of the application. In addition, a note in support of the application was received from Adam Weiss, CEO of Ramapo for Children, which is a camp visible across the lake. Second site visit. Following comments made by Mrs. Gallagher during the public hearings on February 20th, ZBA member David Tobias performed a site visit on February 23rd, 2019. ZBA members Richard Macaluso and Timothy Allenbrook returned for a second visit on March 2nd, 2019, with ZBA members Scott Bergen and Catherine Clark also joining them. The ZBA members present on the latter site visits noted Ms. Gallagher's residence, but concurred that neighboring structures were overall difficult to view from the proposed location of the principal structure. Purpose of these visits was to observe firsthand on-site conditions, property characteristics, setting, surrounding environment, and the character of the surrounding neighborhood. No business or deliberations were conducted during the site visit. The public hearing was closed on March 20th, 2019. Balancing test. In our review of area variance sought, we have considered the benefit to the applicant if the variance is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. We determined that the variance requested should be granted because there is minimal detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by the granting of this variance. Consideration of the 5 factors balancing test. In our determination, we have considered the 5 factors required under Section 125-124C1 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law as follows. A, if the variance is granted, will it cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or cause a detriment to nearby properties? We find the answer to this question is no. The property at nearly 25 acres and with an apparent abundance of possible home sites can easily accommodate 2 structures located as proposed with minimal impact on neighborhood or adjacent properties. All ZBA members visited the site at least once and assessed the potential visual impacts to neighbors. Upon their observations, they found that the proposed location for the new principal dwelling would not substantially negatively impact any existing neighbors' views or property. Its location will largely be shielded from adjacent neighbors, and it should not be visible from Route 308. B, can the benefits sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? We find the answer to this question is no. Although there may be several possible home sites to select from, the benefit being sought is a lakefront location and view that cannot be achieved without the requested variance. Is the requested variance substantial? We find the answer to this question is no. Given the large size of the property, this variance is relatively inconsequential in terms of setback from frontage road and overall build-out, otherwise allowed as of right. The existing cottage is minimally visible from Route 308, and thus the proposed siting of the principal dwelling behind the cottage is not considered a substantial variance. D, will the proposed variance have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? We find the answer to this question is no. Although it was evident that tree clearing occurred previously on the property during the ZBA site visits, the ZBA reviewed the building department's file and found that such clearing has been noted and resolved. There are no outstanding violations that would prevent the ZBA from issuing any approvals. Moreover, the applicant is taking appropriate steps to mitigate the proposed structure's impact on adjacent properties and proximity to the lakefront by using existing topography and woodlands and locating the septic field well back from the lake in an existing field. The applicant is presently before the planning board for a wetlands permit, among other approvals sought. We defer to the planning board's review for any potential impact and mitigation for building within the wetland buffer. Is the alleged difficulty self-created? We find the answer to this question is yes. The need for this variance is due to the applicant's desire to site the proposed structure on the lakefront. 13, minimal variance requested. In addition to our review of the 5 factors and balancing test, we must also determine if this requested variance is the minimum variance necessary and adequate to accomplish what is requested by the applicant. We find the answer to this question is yes. Given the topography of the property, there is only one logical area along the lakefront to site the proposed structure without significantly impacting wetlands. Therefore, the variance requested is the minimum required to achieve what is requested. Now therefore be it resolved, based on all the facts described above and upon the reasoning described above as follows. Section 1, the ZBA hereby grants the area variance requested by the applicant. The proposed location, given the topography and acreage of the property, will not result in any detriment to the character of the neighborhood, as it will be minimally visible from adjoining neighbors and Route 308. Although the principal dwelling will be located further back from 308 than the accessory structure, given the size of the property, this should hardly be a noticeable change from the existing conditions for travelers along Route 308. The applicant is seeking a wetlands permit from the planning board to ensure no adverse impact to the physical or environmental conditions of Sapasco Lake or its buffer. Although this is a self-created hardship, given the applicant desires a lakefront view, that is only one factor to consider in this balancing test. Ultimately, the benefit to the applicant in receiving this area variance outweighs any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such a grant. Section 2. The granting of this variance will be expressly contingent upon the applicant's full payment to the town of Rhinebeck of any and all fees and escrow deposits due in connection with this application, in full compliance with Article 14 fee reimbursement of the town of Rhinebeck zoning law. This variance shall not be deemed granted until all such fees are paid in full by the applicant. Granting of this variance does not absolve the applicant from having to secure any other required permits or approvals. The proposed structure must be constructed in conformity with the application and plans submitted. The area variance shall be null and void unless the proposed construction is commenced within 1 year of the granting of this variance.
Thank you, Tim. Are we'll open it for discussion among ourselves.
I have one comment, question. On the first page, description of the proposed project, says the applicant wants to build a second structure that will be no higher than 2 stories or larger than 30 by 50 feet. Could we just say in there, so that the footprint will be no more than 1,500 square feet? Because the building with 2 stories will be more than 1,500 square feet.
Okay, so,
Did that make sense?
Yeah.
What it was?
yeah, it's ambiguous.
Yeah. Or it could just be, or have a footprint larger.
Yeah, that's,
So no larger than a footprint of 1,500?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
David?
Yeah, thank you for accommodating some of my prior edits. I do have a few more, if that's okay, to consider.
no.
On page 11, I'm sorry, on section 11, I got carried away. The last sentence, just to try to avoid having us make sweeping, omnipotent statements. So it says, we determine that the variance requested should be granted because there is minimal detriment. We don't really know there is, but if we said because there appears to be minimal detriment, or something to that effect, we sort of take ourselves out
I
of
think that's a good comment.
needing to be
Good, Dave.
accused later of
Are you getting
acting as
this,
if we know everything.
Chris?
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Okay, so that's one. You okay with that? On the top of page 4, so that first paragraph starting, we find the answer to this question. At the end of that, so the last sentence there says, therefore, the variance requested is the minimum required to achieve what is requested. It sounds kind of circular. So I wondered if you would consider, therefore, the variance requested is the minimum required to site a second home in a reasonable location on the premises.
I actually, if we're going to make changes there, no, I think it'd be good, but to cite a second home in the desired location. Because there's plenty of other places, as was called out earlier.
But this
that a
is
home could
turning
have
into
been
the
cited.
primary home. Does that matter?
You can call it the primary.
That's right, the other is going to be the secondary in front of.
Yeah, I'm just trying to reduce the appearance of redundancy. So Catherine is saying, therefore, the variance requested is the minimum required to achieve the desired outcome, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do we?
He wants to be right next to the lake. That's his desired outcome.
Right,
But-
so we're
but-
okay with saying that basically, hold on, let's see what the question was. Minimal variance, all right, so we're saying that, I guess I'm questioning whether this really becomes a minimal variance, and the answer is yes, if we're simply saying he's asking for the house to be on the lake, and therefore it's minimal, right? It doesn't-
Well, I think if we accept that what he wants is to have the house on the lake, and he wants it right next to the lake, then this is the minimum variance. But if he just wants a primary residence,
Well, see, I was going with the previous sentence, which is, given the topography of the property, there is only one logical area along the lakefront. So to me, that's suggesting that there's a little more than just his desire about this, that there seems to be one reasonable site.
Well, along the
To
lake,
achieve
there's
where he
really
wants
only
to
one
be.
site.
Yes. Say again?
Along the lake, I think there's really only one logical site.
if he just, if the primary goal is for him to have a house along the lake, and we agree with that, then this is the site.
Right.
But if it's to have a house with a lake view, if it's to have a second, another bigger residence that's nicer, newer, shinier, it could be in many places on the land and might not require variance at all.
Correct.
well, no, it would require a variance because the accessory
be
structure
behind.
is in the front.
He could have built it closer to 308.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
it's,
So I guess it sort of calls into question whether the answer is really yes.
yeah.
I'm not really sure the answer is yes here. It's yes because if we say we want him to have what he wants, then I guess it's yes. But
Yeah.
in reality, I don't think it's a minimal variance.
Well, you can always, again, if you say that there could have been other places that he could have placed his principal home, but in order to achieve his desired lakefront, this is the location.
But would you go to the prior, end of the prior page? In addition to our review of the 5 factors and balancing test, we must also determine if this requested variance is the minimum variance necessary and adequate to accomplish what is requested by the applicant. So that puts away the other locations. It leaves you back on, he's really requesting a lakefront.
You're right. So if that
Okay.
is the actual test,
Yeah.
Okay.
then I suppose it would look something more like what we were just talking about. Right? Therefore, the variance requested is the minimum required to
achieve.
satisfy the desired outcome.
To satisfy
Just-
the applicant's request, or to meet
Oh,
the,
to
Desired
satisfy
outcome.
Yeah,
having a
desired
house
outcome.
on the lake.
yeah,
Something
As
like that.
requested.
yes.
I'm sorry to be so.
No, that's excellent, it's good.
Okay, just 2 more, I'm sorry. On that same page, section 1, similar issue to the omnipotent one just raised. The last sentence in that paragraph, ultimately, the benefit to the applicant in receiving this area variance outweighs any detriment. I think we should say outweighs any perceived detriment. Again, just because we don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think in the section 4, the last one-sentence paragraph there, I was talking to Kim about this, the area variance shall be null and void unless the proposed construction is commenced within 1 year of and then if we say the date of this resolution, then I think we solve the year-long problem, because if we say within 1 year of the granting of this variance, but then the granting of this variance is set on the date that they make a payment, which could be 6 months down the road, it's really a year and 6 months. But if we say on the date of this resolution, then they only have a year, and within which they need to also pay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Resolution,
So,
or do I take the resolution with the date of payment?
No. it's
No.
with
Should
be
today's
dated
date.
today.
yeah, the date of the resolution is the date we sign it,
Yeah.
and then whenever they pay, but they have 1 year to pay and to start
They have 1 year from
construction.
today's date
Yep.
to complete it. It just kind of gives a date
Good.
certain.
Also a good point. Good.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
And Catherine, your point is also excellent.
Contrarian.
Excellent. All right. Okay, if there's no further discussion, do I have a motion to pass this and accept the resolution which was just read?
As amended,
As amended.
As amended.
resolution, yes.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, and Chris, do you want to poll the zoning board, please?
Catherine Clark,
Yes.
Richard Rickles.
Yes,
David Spies.
Yes.
And Sonali.
Yes.
thank you. All right, the resolution has passed. Thank you, sir. Okay. All right.
You too.
All right, so have a motion to close the meeting, adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned, I'll second it.
Aye.
Third.
All in favor, aye, thank you. Okay.